All right, two-dimensional shape. So this is just a lot of vocabulary, is all this is, with a little bit of algebra work too. What's a polygon, first of all? So a polygon is just a two-dimensional shape that is made up with edges or sides. So it doesn't have any kind of circular shape to it. So it can't be a circle, can't have anything that has a curve in it. So we have two different types. One is called concave. Okay, concave is something that caves in itself. So number two here would be concave, because this portion right here caves in. It would be like an entrance to a cave. One that has nothing that caves in is called convex, and that is this one. It's pressed out all the way around. Okay, the next one. Regular or not. What's regular mean? Okay, so let's give a definition here. Regular means all sides and angles are congruent or equal. Now, number three is not, and it's pretty obvious to see that you've got like this side is a lot longer than that side. Okay, so that one is not regular. Now technically, number four is regular, it's a square, but what they should do is they should mark the sides congruent. And the way you do that is with hash marks. And then the angles, remember, in this case, these would be right angles in a square, we would have the box. So since there's a box in all of them, that means that's equal. So that's kind of what we look for in a figure to see if it's regular or not. The next thing is to name, okay? To write the name of each polygon. So how do we name it? Well, there's various ways. Convex, concave, that's a description, but also the names based on the number of sides. So I'm going to give you that list over here on the side. So I'm going to say number of sides and then the name. So if it's got 3 sides, it's a triangle. I think we're pretty familiar with that. 4 sides, just a generic term, is quadrilateral. Quad meaning 4. Now we have specific types, but we'll learn that in later lessons. 5 sides is called a pentagon. 6 sides is called a hexagon. 7 sides, you might see this 2 different ways. There is septagon, but you also may see heptagon. It just depends on the textbook and what they do. 8 sides is called an octagon. 9 sides is a nonagon. Keep going. 10 is called a decagon. Okay, now we get to 11. 11, there's some discrepancy here on how this is done. Some textbooks just teach it by an 11agon, is what they call it. Some other textbooks actually have a name for it, and that's called a hendecagon. That's kind of hard to spell. Hendecagon. Don't see very many 11-sided shapes anyway. And then we have 12, which is called a dodecagon. Then anything after 12 is named by the number of sides. So like 13 would be called a 13agon. 14 would be called 14agon, and so forth and so on. All right, so now let's go back to these questions. Move these over. So number 5, first of all, that is a convex shape, and then I count the sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 sides, so that's called a decagon. Number 6, that is concave, because these 2 sides cave in. Count the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is also 10, so it's also called a decagon. It's just This one is a concave decagon. Number 7 is also convex. It's all pressed out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, again, I'm going to call it a heptagon. Okay, again, it could be called a septagon. One other thing to note, in number 5, technically they want you to say this is a regular polygon because all those sides look equal. Again, there's no way to know unless they have those hash marks, okay, but that's the implication there. So these others are called irregular because they're not the same. Okay, number 8 is also convex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 again. So it looks different than problem number 7, but it's still a heptagon or a septagon again, depending on what the text is or what the options are if it's a multiple choice question. All right, number 9, find the perimeter and area. So these are some basic things. Here's a rectangle. How do you get perimeter? Perimeter is adding all the sides. Remember that the sides are equal, so this is 2.2, this is also 1, so the perimeter of that would be 1 plus 2.2 plus 1 plus 2.2. So you add all that together, and that's going to be 6.4, and that would be kilometers. Okay, what about area? Area is length times width for a rectangle. So in this case, that's 2.2 times 1, which is 2.2, and that's kilometers squared, okay? Whenever we talk about area, it's to the second power. All right, number 10, okay, triangle. Okay, now, the problem here about finding perimeter is we don't know the other sides. So in this case, you can't actually find perimeter unless they gave you the sides. So like if they said, for instance, this was 8 and this was 10, okay, then perimeter would be 8 plus 10 plus 11. So that would be, what, 18, 29, and we would say yards. Okay, but again, you've got to have all the sides for that. Now, what we can find in this, based on the information they've given us, is the area, okay? So this I do want you to know. Area for a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. Now, times height. So what's the base of a triangle? The base would be this, and then this right here is actually the height. Now, how do you know the base and height? The base and the height are the two things that make the right angle. So this side and that right there. Whatever makes the right angle in a triangle, those are your base and height. It really doesn't matter which one's B and which one's H, but technically this is it. So you do 1/2 times base times height. Obviously you're going to use the calculator here, so you're going to type that in. You'll get a decimal. So I got 34.1. And then that would be yards, again, squared because we're talking about area. All right, what about a circle? Okay, with circle we don't talk about perimeter because it's not a polygon. Circle, instead, we use a term called circumference. Okay, so circumference. So what is circumference? Circumference is 2 times pi times r, where r is referred to as the radius. Well, in this case, that is my r. Also for pi here, they want us to use this value, 3.14. So what I'm going to do is on my calculator, do 2 times 3.14, not the pi button, okay, because they tell us to use 3.14. Again, nearest 10th, we talked about earlier in a video how you can go to your mode and set your mode on 1 instead of float, and that'll round it for you. So if you want to do that, and then our radius is 2.1. So I'm going to type that in. And if I do that, then I get rounded to the nearest 10th, 13.2, and my units here are centimeters. Okay, so this is a formula you'll need to know for circles. Now, what about area of a circle? Area of a circle is pi times r squared. So in this case, again, they want us to use 3.14. So I do 3.14 times r here is 10. Square that. So if I do that, 3.14 times 10 squared, and that comes out to 314. Since this is area, that's meters squared again.